Good afternoon, everyone. Let's do another sound check just to make sure I'm not somehow screaming into this microphone. Is the sound level okay? Beautiful. I'm really excited to have the opportunity to talk with you today. The advising teams at Seattle University, have actually been talking with your students over the last couple of weeks in a program called Reg 101, which I will talk about a little bit later in the session. But working with Lori very closely in her office, it's clear that the more we can do to support you in supporting your students, we will have a much better experience for everyone. So just to give you a little bit of a sense of who I am, if I can figure out how to move there we go, the slides. I've been at Seattle University in this role since 2011. I'm actually originally from Minnesota, so the upper Midwest of the country, and I moved to Seattle way many years ago to attend Seattle University myself, so I can relate to some of what your students are currently going through. I received my master's in student development administration and just graduated this past June with my doctorate in educational leadership. The primary focus of my work over the last 20 years has been in student persistence and retention. So through different areas like the Office of Multicultural Affairs, and TRIO programs that work with first-generation low-income students. And I'm happy to be back at Seattle University now, continuing this kind of work. So we know that advising can be a really important component of student success, engagement, and retention, which is why we're taking the time to talk with you today. So just a quick overview of what we're going to be covering. We want to talk a little bit about advising at Seattle University. Advisors really want to be home base for your students. So I think a lot of students will think, yes, if I have academic issues, I go to my advisor. But really, we can be sort of a central hub for students to be able to make them referrals for whatever kinds of supports that they need. So we want to make sure that you're aware of that, to encourage your students to go to their academic advisor for whatever support. We also want to talk about how students can get the most out of this relationship. We really do look at it as a mutual relationship. And there will be time at the end for questions. Lori was kind enough to send some of the ones that you sent in early to me, and I've addressed those at the end of the slide, and like we said, we've got the chat function going, so if anything comes up during the presentation, feel free to write in. So advising at Seattle University sort of starts in the summer. When students arrive on campus for orientation, they receive their first quarter schedule. They are meeting with advisors and advising representatives at that time to go over the schedule, to help them understand why they're in the classes that they're in. So they're sort of experiencing mini advising sessions. From now on, students are responsible to register for their own classes each term. So we really want an intentional way of getting students to understand how to choose those classes, how to build a schedule that makes sense for them, how and where to find requirements for graduation. But we don't want to set them totally free on their own the first year. So advising is to sort of have a touch point with students. We want to make sure that they have somebody that they can go to on campus whenever they're experiencing questions or issues or problems. We want to make sure that what they're choosing makes sense to prepare them for graduation, that they're not choosing classes that don't have anything to do with their graduation requirements. We want to troubleshoot any concerns that students have. One of the things that I think is really important about advising is this is one of the first steps to students really learning how to build new relationships, how to advocate for themselves, how to ask questions, what kinds of resources to explore. And it's an important developmental process that students need to go through to build their own self-efficacy. It also helps them build competencies that they will need in the world of work after graduation. And mentorship can be another part of the advising relationship that, again, can help while they're in college, but also help get them connected to resources that are going to help them be successful after they graduate from Seattle U as well. You may know that we are Seattle University. We are divided into smaller subsets as a university. So we have smaller schools and colleges within the university as a whole. So our main undergraduate schools and colleges are the Albers School of Business, the College of Arts and Sciences, the College of Nursing, and the College of Science and Engineering. Advising requirements, unfortunately, are different by school or college. There are different reasons for the way that they operate, sometimes having to do with structural differences, sometimes having to do with numerical differences. For example, the College of Nursing is much, much smaller than the College of Arts and Sciences, and so just logistically they need to do things a little bit differently. So being aware that advising requirements are different. So if your student is talking to their friend and says something different, that may be because they're in different programs. We also have over 90 different majors at Seattle University, and advising requirements are also different between majors. That includes the length of advising appointments, how long they're actually spending advising with their advisor, as well as the kind of advising appointments. Some may actually meet with peer mentors, some may meet with faculty advisors, some may meet with professional advisors. One thing that I didn't print on the slide, but I know that some of the parents have asked about and family members have asked about, is honors. Honors is a separate program. It is not a school or college, but if your student is an honors student, they may need 2 advising appointments. I know for students who are in pre-major studies, my program, they are required to meet with their pre-major advisor as well as their honors advisor. Those conversations are really 2 different conversations, so it's important for students to fulfill both requirements. Every new freshman is required to meet each term with their advisor. For parents of new transfer students or family members of new transfer students, transfers will meet with their advisor at least the first 2 terms. Transfers have come in with a little bit more baseline knowledge of how to navigate college systems, and they're focused mostly on their major and not so much on other requirements course-wise, so they don't necessarily need as much connection in the first year. Students now know, after going through Reg 101 this past couple of weeks, that they can find their advisor in SU Online, which is basically the one-stop shop for everything registration. And under My Profile is where their advisor is going to be listed in SU Online. Our official advising period starts on Monday. It goes from October 22nd to November 9th because advising and registration, the registration period actually starts the following week. We're closed on November 12th for Veterans Day, so registration will begin on November 13th. Students, it's important to know, can meet more often with their advisor if they feel like that would be helpful. We are almost always available by email as well. So just because one appointment is required doesn't mean that's the only contact that a student has to have with their advisor during the quarter. Again, beyond those, the requirements that we have on the screen, it's sort of up to each individual department how often advising is required. Some academic departments will require that you check in once a year. Some individual academic departments will actually ask that you meet every quarter. And again, students will be notified of that from their advisor. More about requirements. So we have restrictions or holds. Either word will apply to the same thing. At Seattle University, that require that students do some pre-work before they can register for classes. So this term for first-year students, they have to meet with their advisor one-on-one, and they have to attend Registration 101. So this is a program that we offer that teaches students actually how to register for classes. Walks them through the tools that they need to use to be able to find out when they register and how to register. Most students who are in a UCOR 1100 or a UCOR 1400 class, the Registration 101 session happened as part of that class. So if your student is in an 1100 or 1400 UCOR, they probably have already met that requirement unless they were somehow sick that day or missed class. To make up that requirement, they need to, again, contact their advisor. Once they have met those requirements, the holds will be lifted and they will be able to register themselves for classes. There are, however, other holds that are aside from advising holds. The most common is financial. We did just share with students that they should share about a couple weeks before registration and then the week before registration, because holds can go on at any different time in the quarter. So they need to be checking periodically to find out what holds they have. And in SU Online, it will tell them who they need to contact to take care of those holds. And again, they want to have those holds cleared by November 13th so that there's no impediment to registration. I should also mention, students should not wait to schedule their advising appointment. I know some students think, well, if I meet with my advisor now at the beginning of advising period, I might not remember what we talked about. Well, there's a bunch of follow-up that you can do. You can take notes, you can check your notes that are in SU Online, you can email your advisor again, but it makes a lot more sense to have that initial meeting earlier on so then the student can be doing the follow-up work that they need to be prepared for registration. I do want to kind of navigate through the two of the main resources that we have students use. These are the same resources that all the advisors use on campus. It is our go-to site. So you have all of the same information that we do. Students have all of the same information that we do as well. So there's nothing secret. Students should be bookmarking this, putting it in their phone, wherever they're going to access this information. Again, they did just learn about this in Reg 101. So a fun activity for you would be to ask your student, what do you remember from Reg 101, or what did you learn from the presentation, just to try and solidify that in their mind a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to try and take you directly to the website. This is seattleU.edu/advising/degrees. Again, you can access this on the website. You can either search for advising or you can put in the whole URL, again, seattleU.edu/advising/degrees. Oh, it's not coming on screens. Let's see if I can figure out why. How about this thing? We're going to try some things. Nope, it's not that thing. Well, I'll talk you through it. How about that? Okay, so you've got the website. Some of you who are at home may be on a computer and you can navigate right to this website. You'll notice underneath that it lists each school or college for undergraduates. And then when you click there, you will see all of the majors within that school or college. Each major section has very important information for planning out a college degree. So the first thing that I refer students to is the college catalog. The college catalog listing for the major is literally just a list of all of the courses that you need to graduate with that degree. If you click on the courses within that list, you will also see whatever prerequisites exist, and sometimes when those courses are particularly offered. So the first place to navigate is to the catalog page. Next to that is the 4-year typical program of study or the 2-year program of study, depending on if you are a first year or a transfer student. And those are prepackaged degree plans that we have put together. The one cautionary statement I'll make about the typical programs of study is they are typical, they are not consistent. So don't get too attached to the exact pathway of courses. There are multiple ways to graduate with that particular degree. Just know that that's an idealized version, but it's nice to have a real visual representation so you can see exactly what it will take to graduate with that degree. Finally, each major has a 2-year course offering page. Not every class is offered every quarter, and so when students are trying to plan out their educational plan, it's really important to double check, am I putting this course in a term where it will actually be offered? So as we spoke to students in Reg 101, we were sharing that SU does a great thing, which is in SU Online, they post all of the quarters schedules. So a student can go right now and look at not only what classes they want to take for winter quarter, but they can also look at spring quarter. And I, in my sessions, strongly encourage students to bring sort of a hypothetical winter quarter and spring quarter schedule to their advising appointment. Advisors are excessively happy when students come prepared like that to the advising appointments. We also pointed out in Reg 101 the student's program evaluation. This is sort of like a degree audit. It's a document that lists all of the requirements to graduate, including core courses and major courses. That's a great place for them to start thinking about, all right, I can see right here, these are the classes I need. What might I want to take for winter quarter? Another tool that we didn't talk with students about, but I know we've gotten great feedback from students and families about, is part of the Pre-Major Studies website. So on the left-hand side, you can see our pre-major menu, and then if you click on choosing a major, on the right-hand side, you'll be able to access this form, what can I do with this major? Once you click on one of these majors, it will take you to a long document that indicates different areas of employment. We know that students aren't making their academic choices in a vacuum, but they are thinking vocationally as well. They're trying to figure out, what might this allow me to do, entitle me to do once I graduate in the world of work. And we also know that students and families sometimes have limited understanding of what a degree will actually lead to. So this can be a really useful place to look at, to talk about, oh my goodness, if I major in history, I don't just become a history teacher. I might be able to work in business or government or communications, a lot of different areas. And then it also has really helpful tips about if this is something that you'd like to consider for a potential career path with this major, here's what you should be doing while you're in undergrad to get ready for that. So thinking about how you want to talk with your students regarding advising, how can you help your students get the most out of this appointment, out of this experience? So we're going to talk a little bit about how to prepare for the advising experience, how to engage within the advising experience, and then of course, documenting that. On our advising website, you can see the outcomes that we have set up for students. So these are things that students should be able to do after they've had an advising experience at Seattle University. One of the things a student could do to prepare for their advising appointment is actually look at these outcomes beforehand. What do you already know going into the advising session that you perhaps learned over summer in Seattle or at school and college day on the 24th of September or during Reg 101? What are you able to articulate already around your actual goals, both academically and vocationally? How have you been participating in coursework? Do you have intentions of doing an internship or some kind of education abroad. Those are all things that your advisor definitely wants to talk to students about. If you are able to invite your student to draft an educational plan, again, even if it's just 2 quarters, that's a starting place. Bring that to the advising appointment. That's another great way to prepare. At the very minimum, I think advisors are really expecting that students have looked at their program evaluations so they have a sense of what classes they will need, and having searched through courses to get a sense of this content is something that I'm interested in. That much more applies to core classes, which have broader themes within each section. So for example, students in UCORE 1400, that's inquiry seminar in the humanities, but humanities could be literature, it could be philosophy, it could be history. So which area am I more interested in as a student, right? Having them take a look at the classes and think, yep, this is something that either I'm really interested in or I know nothing about, and therefore I want to take this class to explore. Those are some ways that students can prepare for their advising appointment. Engaging in the advising appointment is another key part of the advising relationship. Encourage your student to ask questions in the advising meeting. We're doing a lot of question asking. The more that students can respond in a real intentional, thoughtful manner, rather than just kind of one-word responses, that will help us be better advisors as well. So think about questions that you might be asked in advance and prepare for that. Again, I mentioned this before, that a lot of students think advisors just exist to talk about academics and what classes to take. It really does help us be better advisors, and at the kind of institution that the student has chosen to be at, we're trying to do holistic advising. So not just talk about what kinds of classes you should take, but what kinds of opportunities will help enrich your SU experience. And the more we know about you as a human, as a person, what are your interests, what are your hobbies, what things do you like, what do you not like, what have you always wanted to learn about that you want to have that experience at Seattle U? All of that information helps us be better advisors. And then again, finally document that conversation. I know that I send my students a follow-up email with just highlights of the conversation. Students are able to see their notes in SU Online after the advising appointment. But in many ways, the process of students writing that information down for themselves will help them solidify it in their memory. It will make it better attainable by them. So it doesn't have to be paper notes, although I do have students come in with paper planners. I also have students bring their laptops in. Students will bring in their cell phone. However it works for students, that's how we want them to be documenting their interaction. So some ways that you can help, which may be a review from this session, which may be new. This picture, by the way, on the screen are some of the professional advisors that I work with on campus. And I've known them for a long time, so I know them. You may not, but trust that these advisors have your students' best interests in mind. All we do all day long is exist basically to meet with students and make sure that we're helping them navigate the institution and have a good experience at Seattle U. In addition to assigned advisors, again, students might have a faculty advisor, they might have a professional advisor. Regardless of who the assigned advisor is, every student can use their official advising center on campus. So again, each of the undergraduate schools and colleges have their own advising center, and that resource is also available to all students. Another way that you can help is to ask students some open-ended questions. An example is, what classes look interesting to you? Rather than a question that might be more pointed, like, don't you want to take physics? Really sort of helping your students open up to possibilities is a great tool that you can offer. make sure that students know when they need to register. The registration time is when they first can register. It doesn't end within 15 minutes. A student asked me that yesterday. The registration period actually opens November 13th and then is open all the way through January 11th. Students have that entire time to manage their schedule. So there is some time and flexibility with that, but we also want to make sure that students get in classes as close to the registration appointment as they can. Again, encourage students to think of questions to bring to their advising appointment. Could be about education abroad. It could be about, I'm really feeling like I might need a tutor in chemistry. Somebody just emailed me today about how do I get tutoring for math. It could be about, I've always wanted to learn how to dance. How could I do that maybe at Seattle U? Finally, help students to be calm about this process. It's been happening for years and years at Seattle U. Many students come in new. The first time they register for themselves, there's definitely a lot of high emotions. All of us are waiting at our advising centers to help troubleshoot issues should they occur. I'm sad to say that technology is almost always a problem, and sometimes for example, incorrect prerequisites might be put in the system. Send them to the advising center. We're all waiting basically to help troubleshoot issues for students. As a reminder, the academic calendar is published online, and all of the information, the dates that I've shared, they're all listed in the academic calendar. So the advising period dates, the registration week dates, and then the end of add drop, that's always published in the academic calendar, which is available on the SU website. I see a question in the chat about how which classes will fill up. Some classes will fill up, obviously the more popular classes. When students are looking to search for classes, they can actually see how many seats are available in those classes. And so as we've advised students, have some backups, have 3 or 4 options rather than just one class that you absolutely have to get into. And again, students, when they were in Reg 101 these past 2 weeks, learned that they have a registration appointment. They can look up that time. It's usually posted at about 2 weeks before the registration period. So sometime at the end of the month, students will be able to look up their registration appointment. They can't register physically before that time. The system will not let them in. So they do need to wait until that registration time before going in to choose their classes. So we kind of have already jump-started into the questions. Some other questions from the comments that you all sent to Lori in advance. Some were about career guidance. There are some conversations that will happen in advising regarding careers, particularly as students get further in their SU experience, particularly if students have faculty advisors who are really intentional about what are you trying to do with this particular degree. Students should also be connecting with the Career Engagement Office now. I know that there was a giant event during Welcome Week that was very well attended, but for the most part, students aren't going into career engagement yet. I know career engagement would like that to be different. I know that advisors are referring students to career engagement. Their process of advising is a lot different and much more developmental. So they would like to see students early and often throughout their time at Seattle University. Internships was another question that came up. There are certainly internships available. Some of them are for credit, some of them are not for credit. Some of them you can find through resources in your school or college. For example, Albers has a placement center. There's an internship coordinator that works in the College of Arts and Sciences. Career Engagement Office is another place to utilize to be a resource for internships. The tool that students use to look for internships and jobs is the same. It's called Handshake, and again, students are able to access that through the website. So those are a couple of major themes that I saw in the questions that you all sent previously. What else are you wondering about? What were you hoping that I would cover that didn't get covered about advising? Feel free to hit the chat. Maybe I'm just that good and I really was thorough and covered everything. That's not likely. Okay, great. Now we're seeing some come in. Correct. There's a question about the registration appointment. It is assigned, and it is assigned by the registrar's office through an algorithm that basically calculates their credit hours. Full-time load is actually 12 official quarter hours, but most of our classes are 5 credits each, so correct, 3 classes is 15 quarter hours. That's what the majority of students are going to be registering for. Does this service support transfer planning? Yes, the advisors are absolutely totally equipped to talk about everything that a student is thinking about. I just had the same conversation with a student yesterday who said that originally they wanted to go to a school in California, but right now they're feeling really good about SU, and so he's going to stick here. But yes, definitely in their advising appointment, that's something that they should bring up. A non-academic advisor, I'm not sure I've heard that term actually. A professional advisor is an academic advisor at Seattle University. So typically we have professional advisors and faculty advisors doing academic advising. There may be some schools and colleges that use peer mentor in the same fashion. All students do not get a student advisor. Again, advising happens differently with each school or college. So again, it will depend on the student's major. The registration appointment, it's sort of a misnomer to call it appointment, but we haven't successfully managed to think of a better word for it. Again, the registration time is the first time that a student can go into SU Online and register, and it stays open through the add drop period. So they can change their schedule all the way through the first week of school. How do we help freshmen who may not know what to major in? Oh, that's my area of passion. My program, Pre-Major Studies, has developed a whole 2-year program of activities and questions for students to help them do some internal soul searching about their own values and interests, and then we have them do a little bit of research about particular majors, and then we have them do some research about career options and talking with faculty. So we have a whole comprehensive program that helps students figure out what a good fit major would be. So honors is a interesting program. They're basically their own core. So honors is replacing the university core for students who are in that program. They also have courses that are different, varying credits. So it may not look like a typical schedule of 3 5-credit classes. Students may take 4 classes. They may be in 17 credits. 3 classes is typical for students who are not in the honors program at Seattle University. Students are getting outreach. Again, the last 2 weeks we've been doing Reg 101, and then advising centers are reaching out to do some encouragement for students to set up their advising appointment. So students are required to make their advising appointment. That is not set for them. The registration time is set for them in advance. So students over the next couple of weeks should be scheduling their own appointment with their advisor. And again, when we met with them at Reg 101, we showed them exactly to where to find their advisor's information. I'm going to come back to that question. Options for other advisors when a student doesn't feel there's a good fit with their advisor. That's a great question. For the most part, students are not stuck with their particular advisor. I would do one of two things. I would recommend the student talk to the department chair, unless the department chair is actually the student's advisor, and then I would go to the college or school's advising center and see about potentially getting a different advisor. Services and support for disability. I just realized I'm writing on the screen. Sorry, everybody, that's me. It's not secret messages, it's just me waving around my mouse. Disability services and learning assistance programs are amazing resources on campus that I refer students to all the time. The second floor of the library is basically where all the academic support is located. Disability services is in Loyola building, and I just generally refer students to go on up and say hello. This is a great question. Other than asking open-ended questions about Reg 101, is it okay to leave them to do the registration on their own? Will they have everything they need to do it on their own? Absolutely. Again, if students aren't feeling comfortable about it, they can go to their advising center, and we have drop-in hours happening during registration. So if it doesn't go well, they've got somebody right there to do the troubleshooting for them. For the most part, students manage this exceptionally well. You know, I am not a computer baby, but these students have grown up online. They know how to navigate their electronic tools, and in some ways they're much more savvy than we are. So that is, in many ways, they're more equipped for this than anybody else, basically. Separate advisors for students who are interested in 4+1 degrees. So degrees that go into master's level programs on campus, it wouldn't be a separate advisor. I would definitely raise that in their advising appointment right now so that they can be planning for that eventuality. And just to circle back to the one question that I said I would come back to, we only get one-word responses to our inquiries with our student. That's probably doesn't bode well for us either necessarily. Honestly, that's kind of why they're in college on some level. And we've seen a lot of growth over the summer between year 1 and year 2. And students who were previously one-word responders will come back and chat your ear off about the experiences they had over the summer. So in many ways, that is also just kind of a developmental process that students need to go through. They're going to learn about the kinds of questions that they're going to be asked in their advising appointments, and be practicing that. So hopefully, if we are all double teaming students, they can move beyond the one-word responses. The intro to business class isn't necessarily supposed to be helping students decide specific majors. They should also definitely be in conversation with their academic advisor, learning about the differences academically between the majors in the School of Business. Impending changes to degree plans basically happen in the course catalog. For the most part, students should be buffered against that because they are grandfathered in under the course catalog that is the year that they started at Seattle University. So generally speaking, students should not be experiencing any abrupt changes like that. For the most part, students can study abroad and not impact their graduation time. That, again, is something that students should be talking about with their academic advisor so that we can plan that into their educational plan. There is no typical advising appointment. Again, every school or college does it differently. For example, one school does 20-minute appointments. In pre-major studies, we have hour-long appointments. So again, it just kind of depends on the individual school or college and the major. All right, maybe time for one more question, and then we're going to hand it over to Lori to wrap up our time together. No takers. I'm just going to pass it on to Lori. Thank you all so much for spending some time. Again, my contact information is here. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out, and enjoy the rest of your quarter.